Thursday morning, the papers arrived. A protective order against me, citing every message I had ever sent as proof of abuse. I sat in the silent lobby, heart steady, photographing every page. By the end of the day, I had turned accusation into a meticulous record and discovered the first signs of forgery. What happens when your life becomes evidence? You'll see. I received the papers on a Thursday morning, the lobby quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioning. The process server handed them to me with the practiced indifference of someone accustomed to tension, nodding once before leaving. I unfolded the documents on the marble counter, scanning the formal text. An emergency protective order had been filed against me. The accusations were precise, legalistic, and severe. I had created a toxic environment by monitoring Claire's spending, asking questions about purchases, and suggesting a shared budget. Every email and message I had sent was cited as proof. I read the claims word by word, noting the dates, times, and wording. Each screenshot referenced in the filing matched messages I remembered sending in routine financial discussions. I recognized the pattern immediately. Nothing I had written could remotely justify the allegations when taken in context. I paused, letting the silence of the lobby fill the space between the accusation and the reality I had lived. My pulse remained steady. I did not argue, did not react. I was cataloging, observing. I pulled out my phone and began photographing every page, every highlighted section, every timestamp message. I created a digital folder, labeling each file with a date and brief note on context. For every text, I wrote a line summarizing the circumstance. Who initiated the message, why it was sent, what the response had been. The exercise was mechanical, unemotional, but precise. By the time I finished, I had a complete record of the evidence used against me. I returned the papers to the folder provided by the process server and left the lobby, walking back to my office with measured steps. I set the folder on my desk and opened my banking app, mentally tracing the accounts I had managed on Claire's behalf. Rent, utilities, insurance, credit card payments, all listed in exact order. I noted which payments were automatic and which I had manually processed. Nothing would be left uncertain or undocumented. The rest of the morning passed in methodical observation. Emails arrived from colleagues, notifications from the financial platform, all accounted for in my mental ledger. I did not dwell on fear, anger, or disbelief. My only concern was record-keeping, preparation, and maintaining a clear, unbroken timeline of events. By noon, I had scanned, photographed, and cataloged every document. The protective order existed in physical form, in digital files, and in my mental framework. Every fact was noted, every interaction precisely documented. I had begun the process of transforming a sudden accusation into a controlled, observable sequence of events. I began by logging into every account connected to Claire's expenses, tracing the automatic transfers and scheduled payments I had maintained for years. Rent, utilities, car insurance, and credit card bills were all listed, each with a clear date and amount. I systematically stopped every transfer, confirming each cancellation with a screenshot and saving it to my personal email. I noted the precise timestamp of every action, building a record that would leave no ambiguity about what had occurred and when. Next, I contacted the apartment management to formally remove myself as guarantor. I submitted the required paperwork, ensuring that it complied fully with legal requirements. I documented each submission, photographing confirmation screens and saving PDFs of acknowledgments. I calculated the 30-day notice period, noting when Claire would be fully responsible for the lease and what consequences would follow if she failed to provide an alternative guarantor. Every detail was logged meticulously in a dedicated folder labeled by date. I changed all account passwords associated with streaming services and insurance policies, removing Claire from authorized access. Each confirmation page was saved, each password update recorded with time and date. I removed her phone from the family mobile plan, confirming the change with my provider's digital receipt. Every action was deliberate, measured, and completely within my legal rights, yet precise enough to leave an unbroken chain of evidence. Social media notifications began almost immediately. Friends of Claire sent messages, tags, and comments, attempting to draw me into discussions or pressure me to continue financial support. I did not respond. I opened each message long enough to capture a screenshot, then closed the app. Each interaction was recorded, the date and content logged alongside the screenshots. I treated the intrusion as data, an observable variable in a controlled sequence, not a source of emotional reaction. By the end of the first full day, I had established a clear boundary. The restraining order, which had initially felt constraining, now functioned as a structural tool. It dictated the distance I had to maintain, and I used that distance strategically, turning compliance into a form of observation. I opened my journal and listed every action taken, each canceled transfer, every password change, every interaction captured and saved. Dates, amounts, and notes were recorded methodically. The record was comprehensive and sequential, transforming the unfolding chaos into a structured chronology of actions and outcomes. Throughout the day, I felt neither relief nor triumph, only focus. Each digital record, every saved screenshot, and every logged step became part of an evidence trail. The silence I maintained was purposeful. It was a shield and a lens, allowing me to observe without interference. As night fell, I reviewed the documentation again, ensuring no detail was overlooked. The distance was complete, both physical and digital, and the situation was now entirely measurable and controlled through meticulous documentation. I noticed the first signs of escalation a few days after establishing complete distance. Notifications arrived from the apartment management, showing attempts to submit documents under my name. Upon closer inspection, I saw signatures that were clearly forged, identical to mine but applied without authorization. I captured high-resolution photographs of the documents and saved every email and digital submission in a dedicated folder labeled Forgery Evidence. Each file was timestamped, annotated with observations, and backed up to a secure drive. The pattern was deliberate, systematic, and designed to test boundaries. At the same time, alerts from my credit monitoring service indicated multiple inquiries into new credit lines under my Social Security number. I traced each application, identifying them as attempts by Claire to open accounts in my name. Screenshots were captured immediately. Emails documenting the applications were downloaded, and each entry was logged chronologically. I noted the potential legal implications, knowing identity theft charges could arise if these actions continued. The records were precise and unemotional, a factual ledger of each step taken against me. Legal notices began arriving from an attorney claiming representation of Claire. The letters demanded immediate resumption of financial support, citing hardship and the restraining order's supposed limitations. I downloaded each PDF, saved the metadata, and added annotations detailing the nature of the claims and the inconsistencies with the protective order. My lawyer was copied on every record, ensuring a clear chain of communication and evidence. Each interaction was treated as data. Dates, times, method of contact, and content were logged meticulously. Social media escalations followed. Posts from friends and acquaintances attempted to portray me as abusive, sharing screenshots of past conversations out of context. I captured every post, recording the platform, poster, and timestamp. I did not engage. Every public attempt to manipulate perception became part of the digital record, reinforcing the contrast between the accusations and the documented reality. Throughout this period, I remained entirely observational. I did not react emotionally, did not retaliate, and did not initiate contact. My focus was on capturing the complete scope of interference: forged documents, credit attempts, legal pressures, and social media campaigns. Each action was cataloged, annotated, and stored in chronological order. My journal contained summaries of each day's escalation, detailing legal, financial, and social events with precision. By the end of the week, the pattern was clear. Every attempt at manipulation, every breach, every effort to force compliance was creating its own evidence trail. I analyzed each step as a legal fact, assessing potential consequences without any personal judgment. The escalation had transformed into a structured sequence of observable events, each one reinforcing the necessity of strict compliance, careful documentation, and strategic distance. The situation was no longer chaotic. It was measurable, predictable, and entirely under the control of careful observation and methodical record-keeping. By the beginning of the fourth week, the consequences of complete financial separation had become fully visible. I monitored the status of Claire's credit cards and noted each decline notification as it arrived. Automated alerts reported balances exceeding limits and payments overdue, all resulting directly from the cessation of transfers I had maintained. The car loan account flagged multiple missed payments, and within hours, repossession notices appeared in the digital account portal. I saved screenshots of every alert, each timestamped, and backed up the records to a secure folder labeled Financial Consequences. The property management followed protocol, sending formal notices of impending eviction. I downloaded each document, noting the dates and required responses. Every file was added to my chronological record, creating an unbroken timeline from my cessation of support to the immediate outcomes. There was no ambiguity in the sequence. Every action I had taken directly correlated with the responses I observed. I did not feel triumph or satisfaction, only a methodical recording of events as they unfolded. Attempts to pressure me through legal channels intensified. New attorneys contacted my office with urgent demands for financial support, citing hardship claims that contradicted the protective order's terms. Each letter was downloaded as a PDF, metadata preserved, and annotations added. I forwarded copies to my legal counsel, ensuring that all communications were preserved in a single, traceable chain. Every attempt to force compliance was captured with precision and treated as a factual occurrence. Social media interventions continued. Posts appeared portraying me as negligent and controlling, sharing fragments of past exchanges out of context. I documented each post, recording screenshots with timestamps and URLs. The context within each post often undermined its intended message, revealing the distortion of facts. Each attempt at public persuasion or manipulation was transformed into evidence, reinforcing the clarity of the situation rather than creating uncertainty. The situation escalated further when I received notice that Claire's mother had been arrested for document forgery and fraud, directly connected to attempts to maintain financial leverage over me. I obtained the public record and police documentation, saving and annotating each item. Every detail, dates, charges, location, was entered into my legal documentation folder. The arrest crystallized the consequences of manipulative behavior. Actions intended to coerce me now produced their own legal ramifications. Through this period, I remained detached, observing each development without emotional involvement. I continued to log every interaction, every notification, and every document in chronological order, creating a comprehensive record. The illusion of control Claire had attempted to maintain dissolved completely. Each step she or her mother took led to predictable, measurable outcomes. My position as a neutral observer with a complete evidentiary record preserved clarity, reinforced boundaries, and maintained strategic advantage. The events were no longer hypothetical or threatening. They existed entirely as documented facts, shaping the situation in real time while I remained methodical, detached, and fully prepared. By the start of the fifth week, Claire's situation had fully materialized. The apartment management confirmed her eviction, and I downloaded the final notice from my records. Her credit report reflected the cumulative impact of missed payments, blocked accounts, and newly accrued penalties, the score dropping into a dangerously low range. I saved each statement, every automated notification, and each letter from financial institutions in chronological order, ensuring that the sequence of consequences was indisputable. I noted the timeline of every event, linking each directly to the cessation of financial transfers I had implemented weeks earlier. Claire moved into a small apartment with her mother in a suburban area far from the city center. Public records, utility notifications, and lease confirmations were saved to document the relocation. The contrast between her previous living situation and the current one was stark, measurable, and recorded methodically. I did not react with judgment or satisfaction. The data was simply observable. Every event became part of a larger narrative of cause and effect, a reflection of the boundaries I had enforced and the outcomes those boundaries produced. With the resources previously allocated to Claire, I redirected funds to my own accounts. I opened a new investment portfolio, allocating contributions across retirement accounts and diversified funds. Each transaction was captured with confirmations, saved PDFs, and screenshots, annotated with the date and purpose. I began a new hobby, baking professionally at home, documenting each step, every purchase of equipment or ingredients, and all outcomes. Each action was treated as a measurable, recordable decision, transforming personal growth into a documented and accountable process. The effect of distance was total. Legal boundaries had restored control over my own life, finances, and schedule. I no longer had obligations outside those explicitly defined by law. Observing Claire's social trajectory, I cataloged public posts, interactions with friends, and visible attempts at social influence. Her manipulation attempts led to isolation. Friends blocked her, opportunities evaporated, and the consequences of prior actions were amplified. Each observation was saved, labeled, and analyzed for its factual content rather than emotional resonance. By maintaining a systematic record of every event, I converted a personal crisis into an observable experiment in moral and legal clarity. I reviewed each entry in my folders, confirming that every consequence aligned logically with preceding actions. The patterns were clear, predictable, and measurable. The exercise of strategic distance, strict compliance with legal orders, and meticulous documentation produced stability and control in my life, while exposing and containing the manipulative behaviors of others. No action was overlooked, no consequence undocumented. The process transformed chaos into a clear chronology of cause and effect, leaving me with complete clarity, restored boundaries, and the unambiguous outcome of my strategic decisions. By the end of the 6th week, the full scope of balance had been restored. The restraining order remained in effect, legally enforcing distance and providing a clear structure within which I could operate. Claire's attempts to regain influence were neutralized by the combination of legal boundaries and documented evidence of her prior manipulations. Her financial limitations, reduced social connections, and legal consequences were all observable and recorded, forming a complete picture of the outcomes that had resulted from her actions. I cataloged these developments with the same meticulous attention I had applied throughout the preceding weeks, creating a continuous, dated chronology. I redirected the freed resources into long-term financial planning. Investments were allocated with precision, retirement accounts updated, and a diversified portfolio established. Each transaction was documented with confirmations, annotated notes, and cross-referenced with prior records. I expanded personal projects, dedicating time to home baking and other hobbies, keeping logs of progress, purchases, and outcomes. The process transformed everyday activity into measurable, accountable steps. Financial independence and control were no longer abstract concepts but verifiable states reinforced by documentation and repeated observation. Professional and social engagement increased simultaneously. I pursued additional certifications, attended industry seminars, and participated in networking events. Every connection, meeting, and outcome was logged, creating a traceable record of growth and engagement. Personal boundaries were preserved, interactions remained purposeful, and engagement with external pressures ceased entirely. The structure of observation and documentation created an environment where freedom and security coexisted, supported by law and verified by evidence. I maintained a journal summarizing the sequence of events, noting the clear cause and effect relationships between each action, each interference, and every resulting outcome. Emotional responses were intentionally minimized, replaced by precise observation and factual recording. Each prior escalation, each financial disruption, each legal and social consequence was contextualized within the chronological record, illustrating how methodical compliance and strategic distance had produced stability and autonomy. The situation became a complete, observable system. The crisis that had begun with an unexpected legal action transformed into a framework for personal empowerment. Every attempt at manipulation by others was contained, measured, and countered through documentation and lawful boundaries. By the final day, I observed the outcomes not as triumph or retribution, but as the predictable result of disciplined, unemotional strategy. Balance had been restored, personal freedom affirmed, and boundaries safeguarded. The crisis had become an instrument of clarity, control, and responsible self-determination.